Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. It's Wednesday, and today we have our Scissor Spectacular, and I'm looking forward to this because I think you will too. I think you're going to enjoy this. We have a lot of different scissors to talk about, and it'll be interesting. Just hang in there. Before we get started, first of all, I want to talk about Monday's video. Which was fantastic because everybody chipped in and said about their first car. Oh, it was terrific. The comments, I was loving them. Everybody had a little bit of fondness when they were talking about their first car, and you could see it in the comments, you know. And some of you people had some amazing first cars, you know. I mean, and others had, you know, regular cars like myself, you know, a regular car. But some of you had some really nice first cars, and it was nice to look through. Really interesting, and enjoyed that. One thing I have to say is Rusty had me rolling because the way he was describing his first car, when he said it wasn't the most flattering description, but especially when he said it had a nipple brown top. You know, I've heard a lot of colors being described, you know, puke green or whatever, but nipple brown. And the funny thing is, I know exactly what color that was, that top, and it was like nipple brown. That's something you don't hear often when you go into like a Sherwin-Williams, you know, paint store, and you ask them, you say, do you have nipple brown? And, you know, they'll probably look through the catalog and say, I don't see it, but we can mix it up. We can match it. Do you have a paint chip? And that's when you lift your shirt up. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. Anyway, so let's get started with the Scissor Spectacular. We should have fun today. Okay, welcome to the Scissor Spectacular. This isn't all my scissors, but it's a good portion of them. And I have to tell you something. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, guy's got a lot of scissors. But how could you judge one tool from another unless you have a bunch of tools to compare them to? I mean, if somebody comes up and says, yeah, this is the best screwdriver, and you say, well, how do you know? It's the only screwdriver you ever had. You don't know. So that's why you have to have a bunch to determine. And I don't know what got me into scissors, but ever since I was a kid, my grandmother had a good pair of scissors for cutting material, looked very much like these, and we weren't allowed to touch them. You know, we could always use we had a pair of scissors that looked similar to these that we could play with and cut whatever we wanted, but didn't touch grandma's good scissors. And so now I went on a quest to figure out what's the difference there. It's a tool like any other tool. Everybody should have one in the shop, but which one do you pick? And what's the difference between these? I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you why scissors are such one of the greatest inventions, and they don't even know who invented it, but it goes well 400 BC. The Italians invented finger joints for the scissors, but the scissors go way back before that to the Middle East and ancient Egypt. So let's go figure out what it is about these that make them right off the bat. You're going to notice that there are some long scissors, you know, extremely long, and some short scissors, and you're going to say, well, the one is made for one. I got to tell you, it was a big marketing ploy. They would take these scissors and they would say, like, they would, you know, if you went to a paint place and bought these scissors, they would call them wallpaper scissors or wallpaper shears. If you went into a material, a garment place, they would call them a garment shears. So they're basically all the same thing. It all depends on how they're marketed, you know, on what they do. But you will find some very interesting differences here. Besides the length of the blade, what's very important is where the pivot point is on how good these are going to operate and be strong. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to pick out some different ones, and you can see the difference. Now, notice these four scissors here. And if you notice, the first thing you're going to look at is you're going to say, okay, this one's got longer blades or whatever, but forget about the blade size. What you want to look at is the distance between the pivot point and the back of the handles. You see? Now, if you notice here, this has a relatively short, from the handle to here is only, you know, that long. Whereas here, these all have longer. So it gives you more leverage, and these are meant for more cutting through harder, thicker, denser materials, you know, like you know, canvas or linoleum or things like that, or, you know, and you could see here that's why these would make a great shop scissor, because of how long it is and how much leverage you have. When you have scissors that have very close to the bottom, they're meant for light duty work, you know, for, you know, cutting, like, especially like threads and things like that. And look at this one here. You want to talk about leverage. look at the handles here and look at where the pivot point is. These are surgical type scissors, but you can see what they do here. They have a tremendous amount of leverage, even though they're kind of a light duty scissor. So that's one thing you have to always think about that you never thought about before. You say, wow, look how much distance there is between here and here. You know, the light duty scissors all have this one here, semi heavy duty. They use these a lot of times in electrical. This is a Bell system. These are supplied to the guys doing wire work, things like that for Bell. But you'll see some of them that they have very close to the bottom. So keep that in mind. Next up, you'll notice that some scissors are very pointy at the tip. And you know, for what reason, not many people are jabbing it into anything, but some are very pointy at the tip while others are more blunt. And another thing is you have to look at the angle geometry. This one here is a straightforward geometry. This one has a slight bend to it. And this one here has a more pronounced bend to it. And the reason they have that is when you're cutting materials that might be laying on on a table or something, you want to be able to hold the scissors and follow it this way. Whereas this, if you had a straight one, you'd have to lift up the material to get a good cut. So a lot of times you'll see these in when they're cutting like fabric, or if they're cutting wrapping paper or things like that. It's a bent angle. Some people prefer it, some people don't, and that's a good thing to think about. Let's talk a minute about handle size, okay? Now, you'll see some scissors have, very large handles. Another one, now this is meant for the same hand. So you say, how is it that, this one's made so small and this one is made so big? What's the difference? And the difference is this one here is meant that you would, for very delicate work or something, you only get the tips of your fingers in, where this one here, you want a more leverage. You're going to get more of your hand in here. Now, if you, to hold the scissor properly, that's a whole video on itself. But some people, the proper way they teach a lot of youngsters to hold a scissor, and that's because they put the front finger here. So 3 fingers go into the large loop. The front finger, of course, if it's lefty, it's going to be opposite. And, they make actual lefty scissors. But 3 fingers in the loop, the front finger, the index finger in front of the loop, and the thumb here. And that's supposed to give you but if you want optimum pressure, you could take your pinky out, put 3 front fingers in here, and that'll give you more leverage because you're moving it back. The further back you are, the more leverage. These are really nice. This is a pair of Whist. I just got these. I actually got 2 pair of these. New old stock. Okay, and what these are real meant for cutting, heavy materials, because you can see here, it's got a deep serrated edge over here, and that's to stop things from slipping out when you start cutting it. These are fantastic shears. Again, very heavy duty, and they're available on eBay. New old stock. They run around $20. Next up, we have the infamous tailor shears, what they're known as, but they're regular scissors, but tailors would use them a lot because they were very comfortable in the hand. Remember, they're using them all day long, so they want something that fit in the hand good, and these were contoured. Look at the handles. What a difference, right? Between that and some of the new, especially the newer ones that are meant to be ambidextrous, they're the most uncomfortable. I mean, look at this handle here, right? Compared to this. I mean, there's no difference. But again, this is only meant for people using their right hand. If you wanted to use this lefty, it just wouldn't work. So, but these have, what's nice about these, they were made from a really high quality steel, and they're meant to cut fabric. Fabric is amongst the hardest things to cut because it tends to fold in between, and you really need a sharp scissors. So they would only use these for cutting fabrics and things like that. And they're very ornate, very expensive. These are very highly collectible, even people that don't do any sewing or anything. Here's an old pair of Supremes, and look at this. If you notice, they're bent. You see that? They have a curve. And that's so that you can, when you're cutting, you can keep an eye and cutting for, it's just like you have left-handed, you have right-handed scissors. Well, this one here has a curve, and I don't know too many people that use these type scissors, but it is an interesting one. That's why I picked it up. Now, these 3 models are Whist. Now, they deem these as general-purpose shears, general purpose, made for cutting canvas, leather, things like that, things that you would need a heavy-duty shear for, because you have that handle and you have quite a bit of a distance between the pivot point in here, and you have some heavy-duty blades. Now, this one here is known as a 41S, and you don't see these too often, But this is an old one made in the USA. And these two, I want to tell you something about these two. These two are the same exact scissors. We just restored one of these. It's in my box over there. But this one here is the 22W. Now, Whist was brought out by Crescent, which is the Apex tool group, which anybody knows about tools. Apex buys company names and destroys them, more or less. And they ship out and they do whatever they have to. Now, these tools are no longer, they're made in Colombia, these Shears. So I got these just to see how they compare with the US model. And I'll tell you right now, they look very similar, same pattern. I don't even know about the steel, but you can see the grind. Let's take a look at the grind. You see here? You see the grind on there, and you see this is an old USA model. So you can see the grind is a little bit more coarse. Again, no big deal. But I'll tell you one thing you notice right off the bat. See this edge here? Now this edge, there's no reason for this edge here to be sharp. Yet it is. It's sharp right out of the package. I never even used these before. I wanted to see how these compared. Look at the grind here. It's a very coarse grind, what we would call like an industrial grind. That's the difference. Look here. It's a very coarse grind. Now, can these be, you know, fixed up? I mean, already the black paint is chipping off on my hand. Look, you see? I'm getting black paint on my hand. So that's the difference. That's why people get upset when companies move away and their quality drops. Sure, it might cut well, it might do whatever, but it's missing all the parts. Look here at this handle, right? Underneath here. You see kind of it's smooth. Look under here. Look. You see the casting over here? I mean, everything that they could possibly skip a step on, they did. Same exact scissors. And again, these scissors you could buy for $30 today. I'm not saying it bad. And I look at the reviews, people say, oh, great pair of scissors. They're all good, but, you know, until you've seen a USA model, it's, you know, you're going to notice big differences. And that's the problem we have with, you know, when you start shipping things out and they're cutting costs because everything's about money now. But you can pick these up for about $30 today on Amazon. And you can see here now they use that nice laser etching, which will come off in about 2 weeks. Whereas here they stamped it, you know, all these little differences. Now, there are different degrees of sharpness, and when you want to test out a pair of scissors to see, like, you know, cardboard, anything can cut, basically. Here's a really pair of dull scissors that I didn't get to work on yet. But you can see here we can cut through cardboard very easily. But when it comes to cutting like cotton, like this here, this is a piece of cotton. When we go to cut this, look what happens. It just folds it between them. So these are you know, in need of sharpening. Now, some of the newer pairs, and that's why a lot of times grandma wouldn't let you mess with the scissors, because paper does tend to dull. So you'd rather have, you know, use a pair of scissors you're not crazy about, but you keep your real sharp ones. Here's the new old stock Bell, right? Look how nice that cuts through here. Here's a nice pair of these Klaus, right? Look how nice these cut through here. And Brian Little sent these in. These are the ones that he said his wife has a tough time destroying. He said, and it's amazing how the edges on these, but look at this thing will cut like, you know, cuts through anything. You could double it up, triple it up. And the new Milwaukee, like I said, the new Milwaukee scissors, very sharp, you know, really good but again, the handle's not super comfortable because, you know, I got those big hands, but as far as you can't beat these blades, they're really fantastic. Brian was right. And let me show you some scissors we're probably used to. Now, these are your typical dollar store scissors and things like that you might find at home. This one's marked Stains, but it's also marked Singer. And this one will get through material, but, you know, it's not really sharp. You see it's folding over a little bit, but if you squeeze them together and use the sweet spot of the blade, you can get through. But these scissors make me, you know, nuts, because you see what they did here, like especially here, it's all plastic, and then they use, this is the only bit of steel here you have are these two small little slits of steel, and they bond it to the plastic. Now, that goes back years ago. They used to do that all the time. But now it's just the ultimate. But again, for $1, you can't really complain, right? Dollar store scissors. But you can also get these for like $1. And look at the grind on here. That's from the factory. Maybe that's a Monday scissor. So you'll get these for $1, but you get what you pay for. These are the most scissors you'll find on eBay at any time, and they're called pinking shears. Pinking shears, these are new old stock ones here from Whist. Here's a pink shears, and what these are made to cut a zigzag pattern. Like if you take a piece of material, cut it like this, and you do that, it leaves a zigzag pattern. And the reason that's done is so that when you hem this over, it won't fray. And the materials that's basically what it's used for. So, you know, a lot of times they're used by seamstress, things like that, but you see them all the time. Now, if you do have a pair of these and they're a little bit tight, let me show you how to lubricate them. Basically what you do is you take a piece of wax paper and you run your pinking shears like this. You just cut it a couple times on the wax paper, and what will happen is it'll lubricate. The wax will get on here and lubricate it. And if you want to see the coolest pair of pinking shears ever, the Pro Pinker. Can you see that? Pro Pinker. And Concord made these. You'll never see a pair like these before. It's aluminum, but they got steel pinkers. And look at this. Watch how this opens. It's like parallel. See that? Look at that. It's just like art. I've never seen anything so beautiful, you know. I bought these years ago before I even, you know, knew what they were. I just said these are the coolest things ever. And again, if you wanted to, look how sharp they are and look how nice these cut. A whole different ball game, right? When you get these are Pro Pinkers. If you ever see these, pick them up because you never see them around. Next up, these compound shears were meant as cold scissors, believe it or not. Although they're meant to be cut, you know, heavy duty stuff. But what happens with these a lot of times, because there's so many joints, they tend to loosen up. So you really have to be good at maintaining these for these to cut, because a lot of times people will sell them. There's nothing wrong with the jaws. They're not chipped up or broken up, but they don't cut well because they're not maintained. So these do require some tuning up. You always got to keep these joints tight and oiled, and then they will work. But that's why you'll find a lot of these for sale, because people try them out and they don't work. They say, just sell them. Now, if you wanted to pick up a nice general purpose pair of shears on Amazon, let's say, this is their 2 highest rated shears. They're $10 or $11. They're cheap, shipped to the house, you know. And this one here is called a Mr. Pen. Can you see that there? This one here, again, it's like $10, and it cuts phenomenal. It has very high ratings. Cuts very good. Let's look. Look how that cuts through the material here. Cuts very nice, very easy, very sharp, you know. And it has a nice handle to it, chrome plated, but it's some kind of casting or whatever. Brass accents, nice. I mean, for $10. And again, if you wanted a pair that you just left aside, second pair they have is called the Pro Shear. You can see here, Pro Shear. These again are about $10. Brass accents. These have a rubberized handle here, and again, look how nice these cut. Look at how this just goes through this like it's super, super sharp. So you don't want to buy these for the kids for playing around with paper and things like that. But if you want a pair of scissors that's going to stay sharp and you keep in your special drawer, these two are good to pick up. That's why I'm telling you, you got to get a good pair of shears for the shop, because, you know, you get these cheap shears, you're trying to cut through a piece of canvas, felt, or something. You'll be working there all day. You can't do it. I mean, you're just going to wind up breaking it. Get yourself a nice pair of sharp shears. Zips through this stuff. Any of the good ones will cut through it like crazy. The ones Brian sent, real sharp, will cut through it like glass, you know. So just look for a good pair, because you don't want to be, you know, messing around with junk scissors. Next up, look at these beautiful pair of Richards from the UK, Sheffield, England. Sent to me by my buddy Ben Curfey. And Ben always comes across some really good stuff. And look at and we were talking about inlaid. Look at that. There's the inlaid steel. See that? And you know, obviously I didn't tune these up or anything, but they do cut like butter, you know, and they're just beautiful. But here's a nice pair. Again, scissors, and it comes with a leather. Isn't that nice? A nice leather form-fitted sheath. That's how you can tell a good pair. Last up, I finally found a pair that fits my gorilla hands, and here they are. And if you think I'm kidding, here's a pair of 22 Whist we just did. So, yeah, these are pretty big, I guess, right? These are ribbon cutting scissors. You ever see when they go and they have a... But you want to laugh? These actually do cut. They actually have an edge on there, a nice sharp edge, and they actually cut. So that's pretty cool, huh? If ever I have to do a ribbon cutting ceremony, I can always show up with these. But they finally a pair that fit my hands. In closing, if you stuck around for this entire 20-minute video on scissors, I guarantee you'll never look at scissors again the same way. Thanks very much for sticking around. Take care. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye now.